Hello everybody and welcome to today's video. I am enormously happy to say I get to talk about the Caligula Effect 2 today. The original Caligula Effect is a game that I haven't actually covered on this channel because it released before I was really doing this channel, but it is a game I cannot stop raving about on DDNet. I often say it is the smartest game that almost nobody has played. It was originally released as a PlayStation Vita title, and that was done by Atlas, and they kind of dropped it on us without really doing much to get people to play it, let's put it that way. And the critical review response was not great. I loved it and gave it a very high score, but most of my comrades did not. So then Nippon Ichi picked it up for release on Nintendo Switch and PlayStation 4 as a kind of HD remaster. It wasn't really a remake, it was a remaster, but it was a significant one. It did have a lot of extra contents added into it, and it didn't do too much better, unfortunately. So I don't think too many people played it, and it isn't as well regarded as some other JRPGs out there. So in that context, I wasn't really expecting that we would ever get a sequel, to be honest. I thought it was a done and dusted one-off, but we did. The Caligula Effect 2. And you can check out my review on digitally-downloaded.net, but the sum of it is that I think it is excellent. A very, very good game. I don't know if I love it more than the original because I love the original that much, but I do know that I love it as much as the original, so it definitely continues the thought processes that made the first game so engaging and interesting. The gameplay has been refined, so they have tried to make it a little bit more of an accessible title for a broad range of people. It is still a very obtuse JRPG formula, which I go into in my review, but they have tried to make it more accessible, I guess, to people who don't play a lot of JRPGs. So it is one that you can better come to grips with sooner on. And everything else about it is just great. The presentation is that same unique style that the Caligula Effect had, with a very strong focus on very high contrast visuals. The enemy design is fascinating. It's perhaps a little bit too repetitive, but it is a budget game. What there is very good. The soundtrack is absolutely incredible because they use a lot of Vocaloid music done by real Vocaloid producers. And it fits in with the game because it's part of the theme of it, but it just really is a very strong soundtrack, and it has a good sense of humor too. It is a very light game, as intelligent as it is, and for all of those reasons and more, I think it is quite excellent. But I'm going to use this video not to review the game as well, because I've already done that on the website. What I want to use this video about to do is to talk about some of the key themes about this game, because not many people do, but the whole reason to play Caligula Effect and now its sequel is to delve into its themes, and it really is a kind of thesis as such in a video game form, which is what I find so compelling about it. So the basic concept of the Caligula Effect and its sequel, they have the same basic idea, is that it is possible to take yourself out of the real world and all the problems that you have in the real world and put yourself in a virtual space where you really inhabit an entirely different identity, and you live out your time in this space where you don't have those troubles. Everything kind of washes over you. It's a utopic paradise as such, but it is a constructed one. It is a constructed reality. And you play as a group of characters that want to get back into the real world for various reasons. They have an inkling of awareness that they're in a space that is artificial, and they want to get out of there because they feel like something's wrong and they don't want to be part of it anymore. That space is created by these Vocaloid stand-ins. Now, the original was a very close parallel to Hatsune Miku. This one is distinguished a little bit from that, but point is, it creates this idea that the world is the creation of a Vocaloid. It is an artificial space created by an artificial being, with the idea of making humans happy and allowing them to escape reality and all the pain that comes with it. Now, all of that is quite poignant to this day and age, really. I mean, when you think about it, the Caligula Effect has that parallel between idol and God, which is increasingly a topic that we find ourselves talking about in this day and age, as humanity is starting to lose the attachments it has to those traditional religions, and more people are finding themselves in a space where they're not necessarily religious. They instead find an alternative in a sort of worship, which is what these idols are. And Hatsune Miku is a good example of that. But there are a lot of them that are kind of a stand-in for that religious figure that we are now kind of lacking in many parts of society. So that is a theme that this game explores, and it does so in a very interesting way. Another key topic is the idea of being able to separate yourself and your existence from reality. And that is something that I am very personally interested in, because it does seem that now that we are increasingly having digital control over reality, we're bringing AR technologies so that the digital and the real are interacting with one another. We are increasingly able to immerse ourselves in these spaces which are not inhibited by the physical reality. Because of all of that, what does that kind of mean for society? And how does that, once everybody's able to create their own realities around them, what does that mean for how we interact with one another? What does that mean for how we engage in our broader society? And this game kind of also brings that topic up. And it's really interesting because around the time that I was playing the original Caligula Effect, I was also going to Hatsune Miku concerts. This is before COVID and all that kind of stuff hit. And I was also, there was an art exhibition, and I can't remember the name of the artist now, but it was one of the most kind of interesting art exhibitions I've been to in a long time. It was in one of the galleries in Japan, and we went there on a complete whim. We had no idea what we were getting into. We actually went to this gallery because we wanted to see the World Photo Journalism Competition, and the ticket that we bought just had 2 different exhibitions that we could go into. The second one that we went into posed all these kind of apocalypse scenarios that at the end of times, these are the various ways that humanity might meet its end, and how did we get to that point? And it's everything from, meteors crashing into the planet to nuclear Armageddon and all those really common apocalyptic scenarios. And they were all kind of depicted in this space that you walked around that was already all very melancholic and quite dark, but quite engaging. I saw one of the exhibitions that I saw there was absolutely fascinating because it was a little statue of Hatsune Miku. And I was just wondering, how does Hatsune Miku result in the apocalypse? And the guy had written little essays to go with each of these apocalyptic scenarios. And the scenario with the Miku thing is that people no longer needed the other people in the world to live out a fulfilling life experience, because they had these digital idols. They had these digital experiences, these constructed realities. And because of that, there was less of a need of interaction, which of course led to plunging birth rates and economic strife as a result of that. And the world kind of ended as a result of all of that. I mean, these are all very hypothetical scenarios and taken to an extreme extent, because nobody actually expects these things to happen like that. But it was interesting to think about that there is a social and cultural implication to our ability to create beings out of digital matter and bring them into the real world, and then kind of worship them as a god as such. So all of this stuff is what Caligula Effect, to me anyway, made it such an interesting game. It was not just the button pressing stuff, and I did think it was a perfectly fine JRPG, but it was the way it was tapping into a lot of the other thinking that I was doing at the time and still do, that made it so engaging to me. It was not just it was a game, but it was also kind of an artifact, an artistic artifact that was contributing to a broader conversation that I was very much interested in and participating in at the time. So in 2021, with the release of the Caligula Effect 2, that topic is certainly still very much of interest to me, but it's not the only topic that I'm thinking about at the time. It's really hard to remain focused on one particular topic of interest for years and years, and certainly I've got other things that I think about and do videos about and all that stuff. But the point is, the Caligula Effect 2 still has that theme, and I still find it very compelling. I still think it is one of the most intelligent games that probably will not be played too much and will probably not review that well, and I certainly highly recommend it. But at the same time, the impact of it is not quite the same for me. I think it is still an excellent game. You're going to see that with my review, but it isn't quite as hard-hitting. And I guess that brings up a broader discussion that these JRPGs where the themes are similar from one to the next, when it's a sequel and it's kind of playing on the same theme as the original, versus a series like Final Fantasy, where every single title in the series is very different and gives the developers a chance to engage with some different ideas and thought processes and put up different arguments. Which is preferable, which is better, I'm not sure. But I certainly think the Caligula Effect 2 is a very good, very intelligent game. If you haven't engaged with this theme before, when you're playing this, have a think about it, because it is an interesting topic, and I think that, it's a good one to talk about as well. So do let me know your own thoughts in the comments. If you've played either of the Caligula Effect or the Caligula Effect 2, let me know what you think about them. Do let me know what you think about my review too, of course. Go and check that out. I talk about the button pressing stuff over there. I know I haven't talked about the RPG side of things much here, but let me know your thoughts there. And if you do enjoy my video, please do hit that like and subscribe button. That way you won't miss them as I upload them. And if you want to support what we're doing on digitallydownloaded.net, you can. You can support us on Patreon for $1 a month or more if you're feeling generous. And that support will allow me to continue to build what we're doing on this YouTube channel, what we're doing with the website. And on top of that, there is a monthly magazine that you get each month in digital form. That's exclusive to Patreon backers, but it's like this 48-page magazine of in-depth thinking about Japanese culture, art, music, film, games, of course, anime, food, drinks, history, all of that stuff. If you're interested in Japanese culture, and you're interested in Japanese games, then this magazine kind of aims to show you the culture that resulted in those games. So, yeah, I think it's quite good. It's certainly a passion project of mine, and you get that by backing me on Patreon. All right, that's enough for this video. Do have a good weekend, everybody. It is the end of the week, and that's why I'm stumbling over my words a little bit. It's been a very, very long week. But have a good weekend, everyone. We will see you at the next video.